The sound of ceramic scraping against metal pierced through the cheerful background music. I froze in the doorway of my parents' sunlit kitchen, watching as my 6-year-old daughter's knuckles turned white around a sponge. Her thin arms trembled with effort as she stood on a rickety step stool, desperately trying to reach the bottom of a pot twice the size of her head. Scrub harder. The crust won't come off by itself. My mother's voice cut through the room, sharp as a knife. Useless girl. From the adjacent living room, my sister Olivia's twin daughters sprawled across the sofa, pointing and giggling at their cousin's struggles. Olivia herself lounged in an armchair, scrolling through her phone, occasionally glancing up with a smirk. My daughter's shoulders hunched further with each laugh, each criticism. She hadn't noticed me yet, too focused on not disappointing them again. My name is Rose, I'm 34 and a financial advisor. This is the story of how I foreclosed on my family's foundation of cruelty. The rage building inside me wasn't hot, it was ice-cold and crystalline. 6 hours I'd driven straight from the airport, some maternal instinct pulling me home a day early from my conference. No warning calls, no texts announcing my arrival. Just me, standing silently in the doorway, witnessing what apparently happened when I wasn't around. Can't even rinse properly, my father muttered, appearing in the hallway behind me. He hadn't realized I was there yet. Not like Olivia's girls. They know how to behave. Olivia, my older sister, the golden child. With her perfectly coordinated twins and her meticulously curated social media presence. I'd always known they preferred her, but watching them weaponize that preference against my daughter transformed something fundamental inside me. I stepped into the kitchen. My daughter still hadn't seen me, her entire being focused on cleaning faster, better, desperately trying to avoid more criticism. Enough. The word came out quiet but filled the room like thunder. Everyone froze. My mother turned slowly, surprise briefly flickering across her face before settling into practiced neutrality. Oh, you're here early. We were just teaching her proper technique. Teaching. The word tasted bitter. You mean belittling a 6-year-old while her cousins laugh at her humiliation? Dad waved his hand dismissively. Don't be so emotional, Rose. Kids need discipline. I looked at my daughter. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she didn't cry. She'd already learned that in this house, tears earned only scorn, not compassion. I didn't argue further. I didn't shout or plead. I simply walked outside, pulled out my phone, and called the loan officer I'd worked with for years. Because they'd conveniently forgotten I'd been quietly paying their mortgage since 2019, after Dad's retirement, after Olivia's temporary financial setback that somehow never resolved. Within 48 hours, their autopay stopped. Their grace period expired. And the foreclosure notice went live. The house they used to humiliate my daughter was officially scheduled for auction, and I never looked back. They didn't notice immediately. Not at first. They continued their royal procession through that house, still barking orders at my daughter, still serving Olivia's twins fresh juice in crystal glasses while mine received tap water in a cracked plastic cup. Because to them, that house wasn't just shelter. It was a throne. And my child, a servant. What they didn't realize was that their throne had termites, and I was done pretending it was made of gold. 3 days after canceling the payments, Mom called. Rose? Did the bank contact you too? There must be some mistake. We received a notice about a missed payment. I smiled, feeling nothing but calm. No mistake, Mom. I stopped paying it. Silence stretched across the line. I could almost hear the panic beginning to bloom. Then came the artificial softness. But honey, we thought you were helping us out of love. Family supports family. Family doesn't scream at a 6-year-old like she's unpaid labor, I replied, my voice steady. She sputtered something incoherent, but I ended the call. For the first time in my life, I wasn't explaining myself to people who only valued what I provided, never who I was. Olivia called next, her voice tight with barely contained fury. Rose, you can't do this. The girls love this house. Mom and Dad will be devastated. I inhaled slowly. And where was that concern when they were calling my daughter useless while yours laughed? They were just playing, she snapped defensively. No, I said. Your kids play. Mine performs. Then I hung up. No more debate, no more justification. I owed them nothing, not a warning, not an explanation, not salvation. I owed one thing only: protection to my daughter. And that began with dismantling the structure where her light was treated as an inconvenience. A week later, the official auction notice appeared on their door. I didn't gloat. I didn't drive past to witness their reaction. I simply picked up my daughter, held her face between my palms, and whispered, "You'll never have to earn your place in this world again." Because they taught her she was disposable. So I showed her she was undeniable. The day the auction notice went public, the family group chat exploded. Aunt Vicky called it cruel. Uncle Nathan wanted to mediate. Even Grandma, who once told me girls like mine needed toughening up, sent me a Facebook message with just 2 words. Why, Rose? Because you watched her struggle. Because you all did. Because when she wiped the table for the 3rd time that night and sat in silence while her cousins received second helpings, none of you intervened. But now that the house faced auction, suddenly I was the villain. That's how this family functioned. They didn't protect the quiet ones. They protected the walls that echoed their name. Well, those walls were for sale now. I didn't feel guilt. I felt liberation. When you spend your life sacrificing for people who never express gratitude, eventually the silence transforms from pain into power. They had conveniently forgotten our arrangement years ago, how I stepped in after Dad's stroke, how I offered to cover the loan when Olivia needed time to recover from a bad investment. They never repaid me. Not in money, not in kindness, not even in acknowledgement. But my daughter, she paid the price in humiliation, in tiny wounds to her spirit, ones they labeled lessons. And I was done letting her carry my debt. 2 days later, Dad called. Rose, please. The bank says the process is almost final. Can't you just fix it? 1 more month. I didn't raise my voice. Dad, do you remember what you called my daughter the day I walked in? He didn't respond. Do you remember her face? Still nothing. Then there's nothing left to discuss. I ended the call because there are moments when you stop seeking repair and start building new foundations entirely. As for my daughter, she's flourishing. She sings while washing dishes now, in our kitchen, in our home, where no one yells when a cup isn't spotless. Because I didn't just cancel their payments. I cancelled the cycle. The auction occurred on a Tuesday. Quiet, orderly, final. I didn't attend. I didn't need to, because the moment I stopped that last payment, I had already walked away from that house in my mind. Not just the physical structure, but everything it represented: control, favoritism, emotional violence disguised as discipline. Olivia was the only one who showed up. Not to bid, she couldn't afford it, but to plead. She stood on the courthouse steps, tears streaming down her face as she begged the new owner over the phone. "It's our family home," she cried. But the man wasn't family. He was a real estate investor. He didn't care about their memories. He cared about numbers. And to him, the numbers made sense. The house was gone, just like that. Aunt Vicky called that night. "You didn't have to go this far." "You're right," I replied. "I should have gone further years ago. Because the truth is, that house didn't raise me. I raised myself in its shadows. I raised a daughter in its cracks. And now I'm raising hell by refusing to remain silent 1 minute longer." Meanwhile, in our home, peace had a sound. It was my daughter humming while drawing at the kitchen table. It was laughter between us, not at her expense. It was bedtime without anxiety. It was freedom. And I began to see it, how she was already healing. Because when I offered her the simplest gift, safety, she blossomed in ways no one in that family had ever anticipated. We planted a garden together that week, in real soil, under the real sun. A promise to ourselves: nurture only what nurtures you in return. And for every brick they laid with shame, I laid a new one with joy. Because some homes are inherited, but others, the genuine ones, are built. And this one was finally ours. 3 weeks after the auction, the messages turned venomous. Olivia, you're heartless. Dad's blood pressure is spiking. Mom is depressed. You destroyed them. Aunt Vicky, family doesn't evict family. Grandma, they took care of you your whole life. How could you? Took care of me? Do they mean the years I was instructed to cook for everyone while Olivia rested? The birthdays where my name was hastily scribbled in pencil and hers was illuminated with sparklers? The care that resembled servitude? I didn't respond because when you've spent your life being an afterthought, you don't owe the spotlight an explanation. Then came the most devastating message from my mother. Just 2 lines. She's not one of us. That girl you had. Maybe she takes after her father. That girl. My daughter. The one who crafted homemade cards when I was ill. The one who attempted to wash dishes just to feel included. The one they mocked, cornered, diminished. They hadn't learned. Not one lesson. Not even after the bank took possession of their keys. They still believed I would break, that guilt would send me rushing back to patch everything together. But what they failed to understand was that the day I walked in and witnessed them berating my little girl, something within me transformed into steel. So I did reply, just once. You lost the house. You lost the money. Now you've lost the last thread of access to my life and hers. We are done. This door isn't locked. It's gone. Blocked. Every number, every email, every ghost of who they pretended to be. Because I wasn't merely protecting my child from their cruelty. I was teaching her something sacred. That love isn't what people say when others are watching. It's what they do when no one is. And what they did was unforgivable. So I didn't burn a bridge. I erased the map. They didn't appear at her birthday celebration. Not with gifts. Not with artificial smiles. Not with more lessons wrapped in sugar-coated cruelty. And for the first time, my daughter didn't ask where they were. She simply smiled. Wide, free, genuine. She extinguished her candles in a home filled with love, not judgment. She unwrapped presents given with kindness, not conditions. We invited her true family, our neighbors, her favorite teacher, my college friend who never once made her feel insignificant. When I tucked her into bed that night, she whispered, "Mom, this was the best birthday ever." No one yelled. I kissed her forehead, held her slightly longer than usual, and thought, this is what a home should feel like. Not a place that transforms children into servants. Not a table where laughter becomes a weapon. Not a living room filled with performance and quiet cruelty. Just safety, gentleness, and belonging. Meanwhile, in their world, Olivia was couchsurfing. My parents were forced into a modest apartment outside the city. Word had circulated. The perfect family narrative couldn't withstand scrutiny. When your foundation is constructed on favoritism and silence, the collapse is public and permanent. One cousin messaged me privately. I saw what happened. I wish I'd spoken up sooner. I witnessed how they treated her and you. I thanked her sincerely but explained we were finished looking backward. Because here's the truth, some families aren't lost to tragedy. They're peeled away by honesty, layer by layer, until you're standing in the light and realize you were never the broken one. You were the witness, the survivor, the seed they attempted to bury, not knowing you were a storm. And now I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. My daughter slept peacefully, and I sat outside, wine in hand, breeze against my skin, finally breathing in a life where I didn't have to apologize for choosing her over all of them. 2 months later, they tried to rewrite history. Rumors spread that I had overreacted, that I'd lost control, that I stole their house out of spite. Olivia told anyone who would listen that I was unstable. That the bank had manipulated me. That I'd ruined everything because I was jealous. Jealous of what? Of being criticized? Of having my daughter called useless while hers lounged like royalty? They never mentioned why I stopped paying. They omitted the part where my child was humiliated by adults too emotionally stunted to parent with compassion. They didn't breathe a word about the trauma they cultivated as if it were family tradition. So I said nothing, because the truth doesn't require defense. It stands independently when you're finally standing beside it. Instead, I focused forward. I enrolled my daughter in a private school that emphasized emotional intelligence. We traveled, something I had always postponed because I was too busy saving everyone else from their consequences. Now we were collecting joy the way I used to collect reasons to remain silent. I established a small foundation called Bloom Before Rain, dedicated to children dismissed and devalued by those meant to protect them. Every donation funded therapy grants, mentorship programs, art supplies, and after-school safe spaces. No publicity, no spotlight, just action. Because sometimes the most effective revenge is replacing what broke you with something that heals others. I still receive messages from distant relatives. Come home. They miss you. Let the past go. But here's the thing. When they say home, they mean the house I saved then reclaimed. When they say miss, they mean they miss the version of me who didn't speak up. And when they say let it go, they mean bury it like we always have. But I'm not a shovel. I'm a mirror, and I won't fracture simply because the reflection makes them uncomfortable. Spring arrived, bringing full bloom outside and within. My daughter's artwork had transformed. No more dark corners or stick figures with downturned mouths. Now she painted open skies, houses with her name on the mailbox, and tables where everyone had a place. One afternoon, while unpacking storage boxes from our old apartment, she discovered a framed photograph from 3 years earlier. Her standing beside my mother, shoulders stiff, eyes vacant, forced smile. She examined it, then looked at me. Can I throw this away now? I nodded, and she did so without hesitation. That's when I knew the cycle didn't just break. It ended, not with an explosion, but with a quiet child reclaiming her power, piece by piece. As for my parents, their apartment lease expired. I heard they had to move in with Olivia. Ironic how the golden child suddenly became their only option. But gold flakes rapidly when you dig too deep. I haven't spoken to them in nearly a year. Not because I hate them, but because I love my daughter more than I'll ever love being understood by people committed to misunderstanding me. The truth is, I didn't destroy their life. I simply stopped financing the illusion of it. They built a house of hierarchy and called it family. I called it what it was, emotional debt. And I paid it off the day I walked into that kitchen and saw my baby girl being told she wasn't enough. Now she knows better. Now I do too. We still drive past that old neighborhood occasionally. Every time, my daughter reaches for my hand and asks, "Are we ever going back?" And I always smile the same way. Steady, certain, serene. No, sweetheart. We came back to ourselves. That's more than enough. Because the best revenge is a little girl who no longer flinches when someone raises their voice. A home where no one has to earn love. And a mother who burned the blueprint just to rebuild something beautiful.